Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites. I have a very special guest tonight, and I'm very excited to chat with him. His name is Chad Irvin, and I'm going to quote this very interesting background there, young man. Leading voice in the film and media creation industries in Vermont, and we actually do have a fairly thriving industry here. I mean, there's a lot of organizations and a lot of folks trying to be creative in film and media. So, Chad Irvin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great to be here.
This is cool. Well, we serve on the ORCA board together, so that's how we got to meet. And
nice to be in this room for another reason.
Yeah, but there's no food here. At least with the board meetings, there's food. But he is also the director and producer of Well Told Films. Why don't we just start right there and tell us about you and Well Told Films? That's a little hard to say.
That has been my company name for quite a while, it's the thing I like about it is when you say it, people usually they're able to find the website.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because it's
like
a
good name.
Clear words.
Right.
But yeah, that's my production company, and we're based here in Montpelier and have been for a while. At one point downtown, and then I'm now mostly work out of my office, at least for the time being. But that's my day job.
Your office out of your house?
Yes.
Yes, because it's right down the street. You could all take a walk, right?
That's right. Sometimes people do swing by.
Oh, there you go. But you're also, this list is ridiculous. You're also co-founder and president of the board of directors for the Vermont Production Collective. What's that?
So the Vermont Production Collective is a group that we started when we were bored and had nothing better to do during COVID, sitting around.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges if you make film or media things in Vermont is actually finding one another, because we don't want to be found super easy. Maybe we're out in the woods.
We're here for a reason, right?
And we have these little pods of creativity that were happening, but you're like, to meet new people, you would meet one person and they would introduce you to two new people, and then they would. So if there's someone you usually work with, like your audio technician, and that person is booked on the day that you needed to work, if you don't have a backup person who's local and close by, then you're like back on playing a game of telephone. Hey, who do you recommend? And it's just horribly inefficient, like to running a business.
Right.
And it was also the benefit when you do creative work is to be able to sit down with other people who just know what you do, and to be able to talk and have that sense of community is so extremely important from a psychological standpoint, from a creative standpoint, and it's also really good mental health wise.
Yeah.
To be able to just have a community, and then of course that sort of cross-pollination is also really good economically, because you're able to say you're a 1 or 2 person company like my company. I now know so many different people. I can feel confident taking on like a larger project and say, I know people down in Brattleboro. I just gotta shoot an email to them, and I can get me a crew down there to film. I don't need to worry, will I personally be able to carry a camera from this place to this place or another? So there's many different benefits, and just sort of connecting people online and offline to help.
And a lot of the stuff you do can be done in Brattleboro or in your home here. You don't have to actually be there, I would think. There's a lot of stuff you can do right from your studio or office, right?
Oh, yes. I often work, I use too much for some people, a lot of digital collaboration tools, where we run sort of a virtual office for our local projects. We have an editor working in Burlington, my producer's in Brattleboro, I'm the director in Montpelier, we have other crew in Stowe.
That's so cool.
And we can pop onto a video meeting or just work off of shared documents, and that's just here. Other things that I work on, people are in Texas, people are in Boston, people are in Los Angeles, it's and we can just, very rarely do you need to
in person.
In person, although that's nice too. That's nice too.
Well, that's it. We were just talking offline about the state employees coming back to work, And I would never want to work at home. First of all, I would be immediately 30 pounds heavier because I wouldn't stop eating. But second of all, I enjoy the the coffee cooler deal and the getting the coffee in the morning and hanging out. I just enjoy that. It makes me work a little better. I think I would be a disaster at home.
The biggest challenges that I've seen with it is not so much for me. It's beneficial to be able to sort of hold myself off and just focus on something.
Yeah.
Where the people I've seen who have challenges with it but don't know that they're having challenges are actually younger people, newer people in the business. One of the great things about being in a space with someone is the ability to ask a casual question.
Right.
Hey, I'm stuck on this.
Exactly.
You know, as opposed to someone, it's like, are they going to message me on Slack and interrupt my work to ask me some sort of computer problem they're having? They're going to be much less likely to do that. Where, like, I, as an experienced person, be able to look at their computer, it's like, oh, you got to click that switch.
Do that, right.
Just
I
do
know
this.
my husband's son and my daughter, they both changed jobs in the middle of COVID. They've never shaken anybody's hand or said hi to any of their coworkers face to face. Now they're back at work, and so I think they both sort of admit it's better just to have that entertain. Who can you count on if you messed up? You know, help. I need help. Anyway, there's another. Where do you find time for ORCA? Thank you for coming to the meetings. You're on the advisory board on the Green Mountain Film Festival. Now, I must tell you, very sadly, I have not participated, and I know we in ORCA participate heavily, but I don't have a sense of, should I say what it is or where it is? It's up to you now to explain that to me.
Yeah, I was on the advisory board back when.
Oh, it started?
Back when we were like trying to get it going again, and thinking about it as a community event here in downtown Montpelier. It's now in both the Capitol Theater and in the Savoy Theater, and like I can't take any sort of credit for what an amazing job that they've done getting it back going.
Right.
It's just such a lively event, and having that sort of cultural experience in Montpelier is so helpful. And the timing of it is usually just as the snow is melting, so we're all like a little bit stir crazy. Yeah.
Right. So is it going to movies and discussing them, or being involved somehow in the movie itself? What its message is, or?
Mostly the Green Mountain Film Festival is just a traditional film festival where you go, you watch movies, you know they invite filmmakers to attend, and so there'll be question and answer afterwards. And there'll be smaller little events that they have in panel discussions and stuff, but a variety of events.
And where do they post this thing? I'm sure Montpelier Live is involved in helping get the word out. Are they?
I think so,
Yeah,
and they poster downtown.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to, because we already have somebody when they do the film, the photography around town. We have somebody already for next year for the offices here. So, and then one more. My goodness, besides ORCA, Vermont Creative Network, what is that? Good grief.
It's part of the Vermont Arts Council created the Vermont Creative Network. It's sort of like what Vermont Production Collective does in helping connect film and media makers, but overall artistic disciplines. So Vermont Creative Network, outside of that, also works with the state to try and advocate on behalf of things that help artists. Right. You know, after the floods, getting emergency grants, in COVID, getting same sort of thing, helping people get by. Doing artist trainings and retreat sort of events, and also working with people who work in the arts and trying to get them involved in local government, which is a really important thing. Great. They're the people that tend to sort of the idea hasn't occurred to them that, oh, I should be at the table, because having a thriving arts community is what is the heart and soul of any town. And so if someone's not at the table saying, let's make sure part of this budget goes to art funding, or hey, this could be better communicated if we did this, maybe it's a mural, maybe it's, you know, a poetry thing, you know, getting those people involved in
putting hearts all over the town. Who is that guy?
I don't know, and if I did, I think that I would be bound by NDA.
Yes, just be quiet about that. I would like to know, but I really don't want to know. So I remember, and I'm trying to think of how I got involved in this. After the flood, a lot of artists people that had woodworking. They got flooded out, and there wasn't a lot of attention paid to helping them get back on their feet. And I got involved in fundraising for the artists, and because you think about businesses and downtown, but you don't think about the artist who had all his ironwork out on Route 2, and just everything's gone, and it's a thriving community. And I think Vermont, you name a skill, theater, art, painting, and woodwork, stonework, we have it. We have it all, and really good people, high quality skills, and we are just very fortunate to have as many people as we do.
Considering the size of our population,
for real.
The creative sector in Vermont is actually, I think, the third largest economic sector in the entire state.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I have actually written to Commerce and Community Development to do a whole series on Vermont as an artistic place to come, to invite people to come here and ply their trade, and because what an attraction. You can come by yourself. You don't need a whole company. You just come by yourself, and there you go.
Exactly.
I fell in love with somebody who has since passed away, but I was like a little groupie. I'd follow him all over the place, and after a while he started laughing because I'd be in the front, and then they'd ask for, I had one song I absolutely loved, and they'd ask he goes, "You I know," and he'd play my song. So I was at groupie theater. So, and with all that we've been talking about, this isn't actually what we're here for tonight. And so that'll keep you busy a little bit. First of all, I have to compliment Chad. He's actually been a 3-time Emmy winner at PBS for the series that you did for them, and 2 episodes of the Emmy and Polk Awards. I don't know what the Polk Award is. What is that?
It's like with the Emmys. It's I worked for a long time for a PBS series, Frontline.
Yes.
And like Frontline is sort of like a slam dunk award-winning films. It's like playing on the All-Star
just
team.
showing up.
Yeah. Now, I like to say that you don't get on the All-Star team without having some sort of skills.
Yes, right.
But yeah, the Polks, I think, is more of like a journalistic award, and there are other things that are in my bio that I don't even I'm not sure.
Well, I put it in there. It sounded impressive to me. I was like, good grief. Anyway, Chad and I got started talking at a board meeting one night, and he was talking about a movie that he's involved in called Gone Guys. And could you tell us about Gone Guys and how that all got started, and about what the bottom crisis is in this whole discussion? I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, we look at this sort of what we refer to as a quiet crisis going on, where it evolves slowly over the course of time, where you have a disengagement of boys in school who are slowly sort of disproportionately ending up at the bottom of like the GPA spectrum. People who are just sort of not connecting to what it is, that the sense of something that they can do in the world, that it gives them meaning, and it feels like something they can do. And that sort of cascades into a lower attendance of college and post-secondary education, and a lot more of isolation, higher substance abuse usage, and higher rates of suicide. That's seeing really worrying upticks over the last 10 years in the youngest group of that too.
And is it because the adults in their lives who are supposed to be making things equal are more focused, if I may, on women and on minorities, and trying to lift them up? They're lifting them up while the young men and the boys are going the wrong direction. Disengaged, right? That's the word you've used a lot in talking about this.
Yeah, I think that, and it's one of the things that we always, and it's worth mentioning, it's an easy thing when you first start having this conversation with someone. It's like, wait, hold on a second. The experience I had in school and in college and in my work life, and for you, we come from different generational time periods.
Thank you for pointing that out. But true.
But the experience for young people now is vastly different, and I'm not just talking about like cell phones and all of this other
Right.
stuff. It's like, we couldn't even, like, are you kidding me?
Right, exactly.
But so it takes a bit of a reset to really sort of orient yourself around the reality that is happening now in education and in early life especially. But one of the key things is like what we always like to reiterate is it's not about like saying like unfurling the mission accomplished banner on your aircraft carrier, You remember
Right.
George W. Bush
Yes.
times? It's not like women, congratulations, you everything is. It's like no, that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, getting more women in boardrooms and in executive leadership positions and more in politics and all that sort of stuff. And at the same time, there's this emerging problems that are happening with men, especially young men and working class men. So the point is, let's look at all of these initiatives that have been good, that have helped girls get more into STEM and in these sorts of things, and draw lessons from that. And how can we apply that to the challenges that boys have now?
The day we talked about that, which was our last board meeting, or the meeting before that, I went home, and within a week, this is a true story, I heard 3 stories about what we're talking about on 3 cable networks. And it wasn't a big, dig down to the bottom and really talk about it, but they were talking about it in a higher level, and I thought, oh, it's starting. They're starting to pay attention, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When we first started working on this is a project that evolved over quite a long span. About 2 years ago, Lauren Curry from the Tarrant Foundation, the Richard and Deborah Tarrant Foundation reached out to us, and it was always an interest for Rich, the time that she worked there, about thinking about how boys were doing in education. And they were looking at the end of 20 years of focusing on different innovative programs, doing all sorts of things, but among other things, trying to engage boys more in education. They looked around and were like, a lot of the problems that they'd been looking at were either they still existed or they were getting worse. And so they wanted to look at a way of how can we get this conversation going in a larger way rather than focusing on one program or another. And so that's where the film idea came from. At the same time, people at the Vermont Community Foundation, like Dan Smith, was out in the community talking to community members, and they were hearing this same sort of thing. Our young, what are we going to do about the boys? A grandmother asked Dan with like tears running down her cheeks. They had suicides in the community. The substance abuse was up, and this, in a small rural community, you have several. It doesn't take that many of this sort of problem that it becomes a major problem.
And they used a word that I would not have associated with boys: loneliness. Don't ask me why. I would look at you and go, "Oh, you must be lonely." But apparently that's a big problem, which then, of course, leads to, God forbid, suicide and bad choices and all that sort of stuff. But I wouldn't look at them with that word. But it was everywhere I was reading was loneliness.
Yeah. When we first started researching and filming this, it's as you said before, the conversation has picked up now. When we first started, it was not. We told people about this, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Boys and men, what problems?" But it has started to pick up, in large part because of this author Richard Reeves, who we happened to film an interview for this film. He's been really heightening awareness about this, and a lot of other people are starting to talk about it and seeing that it's not like a niche issue, that it's like, oh, it just affects these boys and whatever. It's if you don't take care of it, it's a problem that sort of grows, and it connects with these other things, it's like there have been articles in the New York Times about the effect of this sort of problem, men's loneliness, men's social isolation on dating, and how it's putting more of a burden on women.
You sent me one of those articles, and it was fascinating to me. How did you start? Because I'm struggling with the core. I mean, getting a hold of the reason why, and how did you put this film together? We are going to take a look at the what do they call it?
The trailer?
The trailer, thank you. I was talking about Leader, but that's not it. The trailer, which is about 3 minutes, and we're going to have it in a few minutes, and then afterwards we can talk about the trailer itself. But I'm at a loss to understand how you put it all in some kind of sync focus, if I'm making any sense at all. It's just hard. Somebody's saying, do a film. Because not only do you have to identify the problem, hopefully one addresses a little bit of the solution. How did you do that?
Well, when Lauren Curry from the Tarrant Foundation reached out to us, one of the reasons is there's this book that Richard Reeves, I mentioned him before.
Right.
He wrote a book called Of Boys and Men. And
right.
this book, Reeves is from the Brookings Institution.
Nice.
And he is very much like a lot of the folks at Brookings, very data focused.
Yep.
So in Reeves's book of Boys and Men, it was already at that point a couple of years ago starting to pick up steam. People were talking about it. What about this book? And Lauren felt, and the folks at the Vermont Community Foundation felt, Reeves had found a way to do this exactly what you're talking about. How do you encapsulate this? How do you bring people together and talk about this in a way that sort of diffuses a little bit of that sort of worry? Yeah. And a lot of what Reeves does, he likes to brag about being very boring. He comes equipped with a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, lots of data, and he is very open in a way about he shows where he's getting his numbers. He doesn't just tell you this is important, this is important. He's like, he tells you about it, he shows you the backing of the data, and then he helps walks you through the learning from that data in a way that's really user friendly for someone like me. I'm not a data person. Like, I majored in psychology and theater in college, and
a little vague, right?
But nothing to do with data. I just took the bare minimum. So yeah. In a way, the way that Reeves was addressing this topic sort of served for us as a guide in the way that we structure the film. And in the way that I would have the conversations with these people who are like, what are you talking about? Boys and men, what problems do they have? Right. And so then being able to cite some of this data in the gender gap in colleges or the increase in opioids and some of this other stuff, people be like, oh, wow, okay, hold on. And once you sort of get past that initial sort of reluctance and people start to get a sense of the large scope of the problem, you often find in most conversations I've had, someone's like, you know what? That reminds me of my nephew. Or that, my son's friend, we actually just lost to suicide. And, you know, it's a thing that touches so many people. Right. But it's a challenging conversation to have. And what that has resulted in is that people are dealing with it alone. They feel like, this is my fault. This is just my child that's struggling. This is my nephew that's struggling. Or people in my small town that are struggling.
That's because then you've moved the discussion along, because now they can relate to what you're talking about.
Exactly, and that's the hope. That's the hope, is to set the stage to be able to have that conversation. Right. And so in the way that Richard Reeves' book did that, we then set out to explore how the problem was appearing and how solutions were being presented around Vermont. Right.
Now, do we have people here in education working on this issue, or hasn't it gotten to that point yet where there's a commitment to treat men and boys and women and girls and minorities all, find the way to reach each of them at a reasonable level? Is it out there yet, or where are we?
Well, we, through researching the film and reaching out to people, we found a lot of people working on it and very, very aware of it. My thing that I said before about a lot of people were really reluctant
Right.
when I first brought this up. I'll tell you who wasn't reluctant. People who work in education and parents of boys were just like, oh my
Because they
goodness,
knew.
thank you. Someone is talking
Wow.
about this because we know this is a reality and no one will talk about it.
Have you ran into people that said that to you?
The exact thing,
Wow,
yes.
that
Almost
makes me-
100%.
Oh,
I'm
my
talking
word.
about whether you're in a college, admissions,
Yeah.
or you're a college professor, or you work in like gender studies sort of
Yeah.
area in college. If you're a high school teacher, if you're a middle school teacher,
Wow.
everyone, counselors are just like, yes, we see this every single day.
That blows my mind. That's really sad.
I mean, honestly, I have not met. Maybe they were just didn't say it to me, but
Yeah.
I've not met a single person who's like, "Oh wow, no, we were
no,
not
not
aware
me.
of this." Like, but we've gotten an overwhelming response
Wow.
from the film. We have over 100 requests already just since July. We've been screening around Vermont. Over 100 people have reached out and say we want to show this film to our local school group. We have multiple people who are going to show it at in-service days for the staff and teachers.
If you're going to show it, is it a video that needs somebody there who can reinforce what they're like? Somebody should be trained or given talking points or something, so that after the video is over and you've got a room full of adults and kids, should there be somebody there to help put it into perspective? And I'm just thinking about what everybody's going to look at it maybe differently, and you're going to want to have people focused on what's the core problem here.
I think that, and this was one of the things, before we released the film, we showed it to a lot of people who were friends, people who were administrators in this
Yeah.
area, educators, a wide variety, politically minded. Like, we wanted to get, it's like, what jumps out to you? What do you think that isn't clear?
Right.
And so we got that sort of feedback from people. And I would say, we're putting together a guide, a discussion guide that
Good.
people will be able to have
Perfect.
to lead discussions.
Yeah.
I don't think that you need to have someone like from the film. I think that it really sets it up to where you just sort of take off and go. And we didn't know this when we started the filming tour. It was going to be one of the really interesting sort of progress of discovery for us.
Yep.
And so we started in St. Johnsbury, and then we were in Burlington, and in Montpelier, and in Bellows Falls, and we didn't know how much are we going to have to facilitate. How much is this going to be? You do film Q&As, and a lot of the problems you're like, let's have questions from the audience, and then everyone stares.
Oh, I've been there.
But
Really?
that amazingly has not been the case. People are just like, they're ready to stand up. They want to talk about work they're doing. You know, lots of teachers showing up to these screenings. Lots of people who work directly with youth in their communities, mentors. You know, and so people have just jumped right in. We've set up panel discussions with like local community leaders and experts and teachers from the community. So it's like we've really just sort of been able to sit back and people take the discussion and run with it. And each town, there's like, you know, the fun thing for me is seeing like which thing just really jumps out. Which part gets a bigger laugh in St. Johnsbury versus Burlington, you know,
Right.
and which thing do you come out of the film also saying, you know what, I feel like it should have, this is a related issue and it could have been talked about more, or there is this part really stuck with me and it hits my personal experience, and to me all of that is just like, yes, please talk
Right.
about it more, you know, discuss. That's the whole point of this.
Have you been able to get boys or young men to talk about their personal experiences, about loneliness, and about, have they come forward and said, yep,
yes.
this is all true, that's how I feel?
Oh yes, yes.
Really?
It's been there's been some really moving moments
Oh, I bet.
at some of the discussions. There's a couple people when we screened at the Middlebury New Filmmaker Festival, and a couple people just stood up and said, you know, this really impacts. It really connects with my personal experience, and told really touching stories about themselves and dealing with isolation and loneliness. We had the coach of the Middlebury football team was actually one of our panelists at the Middlebury Film Festival, because he's setting up a program where he's trying to encourage the football players to be to share with one another. These are your teammates. Express yourselves. We have to have each other's backs, not just playing football, but as people. And he's setting up a program where the football players are going to be going into local schools and serving as mentors for the young men in the schools, because it's something that the coach had seen in his life and in his players' lives, where people were having, like, suffering from this isolation and loneliness and a reluctance to also share. That vulnerability is really hard.
That's sort of a stereotype that has been labeled with boys and men for forever, I would think. I'm old. It's been my whole life, but this is very surprising to me. We want to show the trailer, and before we show it, I want to talk a little bit about, you just discussed this huge world. How did you take that world and move it into 3.27 minutes and get the idea across about what you're trying to do? That's a trick.
Well, it is. It is the whole film itself is like 45 minutes, and that we actually edited it relatively quickly. I spent a lot of my early career as a film editor, and so I filmed when we were filming it, and then when we were doing the scripting and editing down in a very targeted way. But so from that 45 minutes, then our task was to make this trailer that sort of, it doesn't tell you everything that happens in the movie. You know, everyone's seen a movie trailer like that where it's like, well, I don't even need to go see the movie now.
Exactly. I don't like this. What is this? Yeah.
So, but also represents what the sort of topics and perspectives that are going to be represented in the film. And for us, one of the main things was, and I think you'll see it in the trailer, is I sat down with all kinds of young men and boys and just listened to them and had them tell me about their experience. And that's what was most important for us, that we were able to convey in the film.
This is real, people.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to show you the trailer right now.
It's not a fun thing, really, to be a young man right now. Like, there's a lot of criticism and there's a lot of isolation.
There are still a huge number of issues that we still need to tackle for women and girls. And there are a growing number of issues where we have to pay more attention now to boys and men. And we have to do both those things at once.
My experience in school, I got in trouble a lot. You know, went to the principal's office quite a bit. You know, I felt very alone, and I just felt no one understood me.
So many of these kids that I've worked with who have trouble relating to school do just amazing things at home. What is it that we do in schools that causes that drive to learn to go away?
The gender gap in college degrees. In 1971-72, there was a 13 percentage point gap in favor of men. The catch-up was rapid. So there's now a bigger than Title IX level gender gaps in higher education now, but reversed.
This is the quiet conversation that educators have had for some time.
However we're preparing young people, it is not working as well for boys.
We also see this crisis among men playing out at a psychological level.
I just didn't really care about having a future. I was just like, whatever happens is gonna happen.
My father grew up with his father basically telling him, you're a man, men don't cry. So I just felt so, isolated.
A lot of men feel like they have quite a long list of things they know not to do. They don't have a very good list of things they should do.
What is taught, what is more focused on is what we're calling toxic masculinity.
We encourage men, go get engaged as a dad and talk about your feelings, but then we don't create those spaces.
I want to model what it should be to be not only a dad, but just a man in today's world, period.
Men aren't good about saying, I'm not doing well and I need to talk to someone. We have to be able to entertain that conversation of, we need to go get you some help.
I think sometimes things happen and they just continue to happen. And you don't sort of stop and say, oh, here's this trend. We can do something about it.
Nice job, Dusty. Yeah. Before you get frustrated, remember how much better you've gotten already,
Hey, I gotta work on my firm handshake, bro.
All right, literally just
too far in the United States of America.
If we don't want young men and boys to feel like the only people talking about the issues that are affecting them for real are those who are perhaps on the more reactionary side, whether it's left or right, but more reactionary, then it's up to us. That is our failing, not theirs.
Asking the question, what can you do tomorrow, is really important. It's not going to be one thing, it's going to be hundreds of things.
So we should now talk about how do you get this out. And you've mentioned a couple starting up north and working your way down. And sadly, tonight there's something you said, which of course people won't be able to go because we're here and they're there. But maybe you could talk about how you're going to roll this out from now on.
Yeah, we've had a whole lot of interest in a community-hosted event, and we have a forum on our website. It's goneguysfilm.com. And we have a calendar that's constantly being updated. As we add new dates, it populates live on the website, and those will show up there if they're community-hosted events too. We're putting them on there too, and we're scheduling out into the winter now. Different towns to visit around Vermont. There's we're going to be in a film festival over in New Hampshire in a little while, and that's going to be really exciting. So yeah, they're going to be, for right now, we're focusing on the touring around, and one of the great things about that is having those in-person live conversations afterwards. Right. It's also, as it turns out, like one of the most labor-intensive parts is to track down and find a good mix of panelists to have on, to facilitate.
That's important.
Yeah. So for each film screening, we're finding a good mix of people to have on stage. But we'll be.
And do you facilitate these presentations, or do people that you work with just go and kind of get it all going and put it in context and introduce it?
Well, it depends. It depends on how, in partnering with local groups, there are different ways. There are different tiers, and it's like, please just come here and show the film. That's like, okay, so we do everything. That's one thing. Or some groups, like we're working with the Green Mountain United Way tonight. They said, oh yeah, we know some people here in Barrie. We can get the panel. We'll get some sponsors for the event, and so then we augment the other side of that. And then there are other people who just.
Where is it being shown tonight? Just for
tonight, it'll be at the Barrie Opera House.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and I think I stuck some dates in here because I'm terrible at remembering things.
Oh yeah, go ahead and read it from it. We read from notes all the time here.
On the 25th, we'll be in Brattleboro, and that's going to be a very exciting panel, including the. I think it's been announced.
Oh, you hear it here first, folks.
Yeah, we're going to have Vermont filmmaker Jay Craven.
Oh, get out!
And Becca Balint. And the executive director, I can't think of her name right now, of the Boys and Girls Club of Brattleboro, where we filmed during the project.
Good.
So it should be a great discussion in Brattleboro, and it's actually going to play there for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to be in Manchester on the 26th of September, and then we'll be back here in Montpelier on October 3rd with another. Screening night with a discussion afterwards, and then it's going to run at the Savoy for a few weeks.
Have you thought about the State House with a big screen in the house, well of the house?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea for like a farmer's night or something.
Let them know what's up.
Yeah,
I bet they would enjoy that.
It would be a great place to
have. They've done that before.
Yeah,
they've just put a big screen up and people come in and legislators sit and it's not that long, so they can certainly manage to. Do for 45 minutes.
I was going to say that's actually sort of that was the goal in choosing a duration. It was always our focus is what is the right length to show, and then have time for a discussion afterwards. Especially like when we're showing around to different communities, like being a parent myself, I know like after a 90-minute film, you're trying to figure out, do I have time to grab a bite to eat, and how much is that going to cost me with the babysitter?
Yeah, right.
You should, like,
point,
you're
right,
about
exactly.
ready to head home by
Yeah.
the end of your.
Cost you more than the dinner.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was the perfect sort of size to fit into like a teacher in service, development day,
Right.
that sort of stuff.
Right. I think that it really should be shown in the legislature, and maybe Rebecca Holcomb was on the trailer, and maybe she would have some in to get it shown in the legislature. You have to schedule it pretty well in advance. But
Yes, I think you do. I don't remember who the point person is on the events they
Yeah.
have there, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely something we should.
Yeah.
Whenever we're looking to try and do something like that, it's definitely the legislature would be a good sort of idea,
because
because you can
education's
also,
the thing.
Yeah,
It's
this year.
the hot topic this year, and with the task force meetings, it'd be a good time to let them know this is part of the mix and should be thought about.
Yeah, and I think that the film does a big focus on decoupling this conversation from like a political
Oh, yeah,
lens,
please.
and so
Yeah.
it would be good to engage in a bipartisan way.
Yeah.
So it's like this is not an issue that
Yeah.
it's going to be over here, it's going to be over
Yeah,
here.
it
It's like
can't
it
be.
affects all of us.
Yeah.
It's like 48% of the
Loneliness
population.
is loneliness.
Yeah.
Everybody feels it sometimes. That's really great. So, and you had other people in the trailer. I apologize, I have not seen the whole film, but I am going to, and I'm going to go to the October event for sure. Did you say October, right? October?
Yes, October.
3rd.
Let me check my notes again.
Third?
3rd,
I got
October
it.
3rd.
It's in the brain somewhere. What is, have anybody sort of pushed back a little bit, as they always do, speaking of politics? Oh, that's not really happening. I mean, have you had any resistance, or they're all flat out fix it?
I wouldn't, no one at all has been just straight up, that is not an issue.
Right.
I think that pushback has come in, there's been a hesitation, it's like, I just like a fear that someone might be able to take this and try and capitalize on it for some other end, like be able to be like, okay, look at this means that we need to, women are to blame, we need to somehow, that sort of thing. Or other things, someone maybe feels like, I feel like this brings up this topic, and this is connected to this other thing and this other thing, and which I love, because if we're talking about that, then the film has done a good job starting
made
a
your
conversation.
point. Right.
Yeah. So the impacts that are happening on boys and young men, it impacts so many different other areas of society in our communities that I didn't want to be picking and choosing which other sort of interactions to focus on. And then, so if I'm telling a 45-minute film, there's some of these other topics, they deserve their own films.
Yeah.
Like me mentioning it, oh yes, by the way, there's this other really important issue in like 1 minute in a film.
Moving on.
Moving right along. That doesn't serve that topic well, and it also doesn't serve the topic that I'm trying to make a film about here.
Do you feel good about this? I mean, you went, the end product is what you envisioned.
I think so. Yeah. There was something you in your question before about the pushback. I would say that
I think people feel protective, and they feel he doesn't feel that way because I'm his parent and I know what's going on. Maybe not. I mean, what kids really shares with their parents.
Yeah. This like I was one thing that I like to reiterate about this is the hesitation to talk about it because other people may take it for take it for their profit or to direct people toward a political goal or anything else like that. The problem is that if there's already people doing that,
I would
on the
imagine,
internet.
for sure.
So what we need more of is boring, regular people doing,
Just
computer and camera nerd dads like me out there saying, yes, being a model, being vocal about this is another way to be a man. You don't, this idea that may be becoming very popular online, that is not the only way. That's fine. If that connects for you, okay, great. But like, there are all these other ways. And so, but by not talking, you're seeding all conversation about this to these people who are already out there and they're connecting with young men. And so it's for me, the pushback, I'm honestly sort of shocked that there has not been more, because it is
I just
sensitive.
assume, knowing people and politics, that they're always pushing back, being defensive.
Amazingly, they're not too much.
You know, it just hit me with my little brain. I used to live in New York City, and the highest rate of suicides happened at Christmas time in New York City, because people were lonely and felt alone when you're supposed to be happy and joyous and lights and presents, and so that's, you don't realize that people that you're passing in the street is just really lonely, and that's hard to make it better for them, but got to try, I think.
I think that a really interesting thing that Richard Reeves highlights in his book is that there's a study that looked at suicide notes from men who had committed suicide, and two of the most common words in those were useless and worthless.
Oy.
And
Those
so
are both very
we often get the question after screenings, what is driving this? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, that's a hard question to answer, and it would take like an entire evening of parsing things. Another whole show. Yeah. So, but I mean, thinking about that though, it can lead a person toward where you might be able to help. A disconnection of a sense of purpose in life. How am I contributing? Right. How am I being useful? For a lot of men, the notion of what it is to be a man changed over their lifetime, and now they're struggling to have a sense of what am I supposed to be doing? Because what you did before to be useful has changed. A lot of times right out from under people.
And it's hard to change with it or to even notice. I thought of the word masculinity. There has been so much discussion on cable about masculinity and what is, I don't know if it's got anything to do with this. It might be a whole separate show and a whole separate discussion, but they're all of a sudden talking about what does masculinity look like. And if I'm opening up a Pandora's box, I don't mean to. That's what they were talking about, but because men are supposed to, men and boys are supposed to, and if you're lonely and don't have anybody to guide you or give you direction or role models, who knows?
Well, no, I think that you hit on exactly the key point. When we started doing this, it was very important to me that I didn't want to just do talking about declining rates of college enrollment or in this other stuff without saying, like with the suicide notes, it's like, why?
Right.
Well, let's look at why. And there was no way to talk about this topic without getting into the idea of masculinity.
Right. Oh, interesting.
So we actually dedicate a big chunk of the film where I ask every single person we interview, the question I put to them was, because this is something I heard from the boys, that they're always being told there's a huge list of things that they know that they're not supposed to do, but they have no idea what they're actually supposed to be doing.
Interesting.
And so I asked our experts, our policy level thinkers and nonprofit leaders and all this. I say, okay, so I'm putting it to you. We're telling all of these boys, don't do this, this is toxic, don't do that. Let's together, what should they be doing?
Uplifting
let's
things.
Create a positive a sense of, okay, what should they be doing? And that was, people had such a hard time answering the question. I actually left in the film, I don't want to give too much away, I have people struggling to answer the question in the film because it's a hard question to answer. You say, okay, so now let's we had dads try to answer it. We had these policy leaders try and answer it. We had the high school boys at Montpelier's masculinity class try and answer it. We had a group of Boy Scouts take on the question.
Hold on a second. There's a masculinity?
Yes. There was a class at Montpelier High School.
I'm sorry. That sounds really interesting.
Healthy masculinity, yeah. It was a fascinating program, and we heard about it, and I was like, oh, we got to go check this out.
For
and
sure.
It's a quick commute for me.
Yeah, right. You can walk there probably.
So
yeah, I had not heard of that. I wonder if this discussion and on cable is some kind of an offshoot of this discussion we're talking about young men and boys. It's just maybe evolved a little bit. I wonder if it's all tied in. Maybe it's out there more than we think, or that you think. It might be out there in a different form of sorts, but let the discussion be. And I wanted to ask you, we only have a few minutes left. The word, which I never can pronounce this word, so I apologize. Rural.
Mm-hmm.
How much influence or impact or whatever does the fact that we are in a rural state impact this discussion? Because I was just talking about the city before, that even in the middle of New York City, people are lonely. I mean, how can that be? But it is. So how much is, I hate this word, how much is, I can't say it.
Rural.
How much is rural?
It is a huge factor. And that's why, I mean, it's sort of crazy for us that we started doing this film a couple years ago, and I figured a big filmmaker somewhere else would dive in and make a big national film before we finished. But we've ended up surging out here, and it's like we're getting messages from all over the country saying, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to screen this film."
Great.
And I'm just like, I can't believe we've taken this on. But one of the reasons it was really important for us in Vermont to take it on is that we are so rural, and this actually. It's one of the tricky parts about talking about this conversation, because in some areas of life you look and men are still in positions of power and still look to be doing great in boardrooms and all of these places. Right. And what is this? Finance. I can't think of the word for it right now. At any rate, but where the problem is worse is actually among black boys and in boys in rural areas. One of the more striking things for me was that, because we're talking about education, we're talking about how education is so important in Vermont. One of the things that Reeves shows in his book is you look at a school that is a failing school, not performing well enough, it's not meeting metrics, and in a poor area. We have a tendency to be afraid to wade into this conversation about what are the test scores? How do we split this up? How are the boy students doing? How are the girl students doing? Right. Let's look at those data sets as separate things. What you find when you look at low-income schools that are performing poorly, if you separate the boys out and you only look at the girls are actually doing great. The girls are doing as well or better than middle-income boys. Interesting. So the difference in what makes a school a failing school versus a school that's doing well is how many of the boys are actually slipping through the cracks.
Wow.
If you're looking at how can we diagnose a problem in education and you fail to analyze this, it's like, I compared to someone, I say it's like going to the doctor and I say I have a stomach ache and they send you home with painkillers instead of figuring out why your stomach is aching.
Yeah, and then if you add on being a minority, because in Vermont, all minorities, used to be anyway, maybe it's a little higher now, all minorities were 4% of our population. What is that? I mean, that's everybody. Everybody that's considered a minority is 4%. You want to talk lonely. I mean, where do you get your role models and what to do and not to do? It's that we don't have the bulk here. We don't have the numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I think that it came up in the conversation for the last time we screened in Montpelier that there is an extreme deficit of people to do mentoring with young people. Right. And Shabnam Nolan from the King Street Center said a very direct appeal to the audience. If you want to be able to affect this tomorrow and not waiting for policy decisions, raise your hand and become a mentor for someone.
Right.
It doesn't have to be, all you do in life. It's just like taking some time to help some of these people.
I've read somewhere it said just show up, and it's like be there. I mean, maybe you don't have to be the world's greatest mentor or the world's brainiest. How do you move this kid? Just be there and show kindness and support, and you're on the right track.
That's right.
Just show up.
A lot of kids, and it's not that it only needs to be male mentors. A lot of these boys that are struggling they're specifically what they're asking for is they want a man to be their mentor.
Right.
But just having someone who can just be a normal person, a model for, that's what it means. It's this guy's relatively normal.
They do pay attention, kids. I've always found it interesting that my daughter and some of her friends will say things over the years. Whoa, I remember that.
You gotta be careful.
But right in the brain, and it was press the save button, and it came back 10 years later. Remember when you did this, Mrs. McDonald? And yep. Moving along. Yeah, because they do. They pay attention.
And the small things can have a big impact. Just being a person who shows up, being a person who is consistent, who is there. Yeah. That really can have an impact on a person's self-esteem.
I think you've hit a very important word, consistency. I mean, I don't think people think about that, but having kids like structure. They like rules, believe it or not. The red light, green light tells you what to do. Yellow light, contrary to what my daughter says, it is not speed up. It is slow down. That's what, and when she was young, the yellow means speed up, Mom. But they want consistency. Well,
I'm reading a really interesting book right now called 10 to 25, The Science of Motivating Young People. And a lot of what he talks about is this. He calls it the mentor mentality. And it's funny, it's actually a combination of the ideal helpful mentality for young people is to have high standards and a high level of support. So you say, I expect and I trust that you can exceed these things.
Right.
And then being there to support them as they try to do it, but not doing it for them.
Exactly.
But you pushing them and supporting them. And just that sort of, not just having a bunch of rules and being authoritarian and not protecting them from everything. But it's a very interesting book, and I think
what is the name of it again?
10 to 25, because that's the age range.
That's the age for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chad, thanks for tuning in, folks. This is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the sound bites.